this is Chris Anderson. He has created Maximize Career Service to help individuals with their job searching needs and consulting with businesses needing to revolutionize their talent profile to meet their complex business needs. Today, he'll be talking about how to develop and maintain a resume, tips for interviews, job searching during COVID, and in the end, he can answer questions that either I have or Cynthia has, or even when we post this in the virtual communities, he can maybe pop up and answer some
Mhm.
questions in the comment section as well. So,
Well, thank you so much for having me on. Glad to have the opportunity to kind of give some advice and some support and hopefully some guidance and direction to anyone who has questions. And so we're at a really fortunate time when it comes to job searching during COVID because we have such a vast digital infrastructure that we can lean on.
mhm,
Wi-Fi is just about everywhere. We have cell phones, we have tablets, we can connect from just about any location. And most employers are digital as well with their applications.
mhm,
Had this been, 30, 40 years ago, where people literally got a stack of resumes and, as my mother-in-law said one time, well, just beat the street and go hand out your resume. No one does that anymore.
mhm, exactly.
We don't go door to door downtown looking for businesses that might be hiring and leaving paper resumes. So the fact that we are in this digital age is incredibly helpful. We now have the ability to see where jobs are listed anywhere that they are. That can be, locally, across town, across the nation, across the world. So when it comes to job searching, well, of course, the key is, and it sounds simple, but trust me, it's not, knowing what you want. um, it's um, it's a really sad thing that I have to face very often is people want a job, they just don't know what they want to do. And that's truly where you have to start because when it comes to job boards or going to a company website and looking at their careers page, you have to know what you're applying for. I frequently, and just somebody who's been in human resources for 14 plus years, if I do the math now, um, the number one pet peeve of myself and a lot of people who are in my industry is when we go to career fairs and someone says, "Hey, are you hiring?" I'm like, "Yeah, we are. What are you looking for?" "Well, I got a business degree, so what can I do with that?"
Right, exactly.
Or they'll say that, "Oh, well, I got a degree. I'm getting a degree in management. I'm managing this. So, do you have any management jobs?"
Right.
And we are typically scratching our head at that point, saying, "Yes, we do have management positions available. If you have your bachelor's degree finished, if you have a master's degree, 10 to 15 years of experience in this industry, plus a certification, you can definitely be in management." People don't always realize that when it comes to those positions, there is a line.
Right, right.
So when you're job searching, particularly when you're young in your career, you have to know what you're looking for, but also learn the path for it. One piece of advice, one nugget that I'll give is that no matter where you are in your career journey, whether you're just getting started, whether you're 5, 10, 20 years in, never stop being a student of your profession. It's always growing, it's always changing. Things change as the technology changes, things change as laws and regulations change. So you want to make sure that you're a student of what you're doing.
Right.
And as you're learning those things, it's going to determine what that entry point is going to be. One simple way to do that is to go to a site like LinkedIn, where you can find people who are in that industry, who are in that profession, even if it is a management position. You can find those individuals, you can connect with them, ask them questions or what have you. But even simpler than that, looking at their profile, you can see their job titles and the work that they did over the past 5, 10 years or what have you that
Mm,
got them to that location because you can want to be a epidemiologist and you know that you are going to have to study this and get this body of knowledge, but how do you become a senior epidemiologist for this organization or for this institute or what have you? Learning the career path, learning that progression in some cases is just knowing what the entry level position is. Sometimes it's going to be an entry level assistant researcher. Sometimes it's going to be doing the internships with the right company, and then them being able to put you into one of those feeder positions. But the first and most basic thing, which unfortunately, as basic as it is difficult, is knowing where you want to be and what you want to do.
Mhm.
Once you get that very basic step, then of course it's going to those job boards, it's going to those companies' websites and creating an application. When it comes to digital applications, you have to make sure that you're giving them the information that they're asking you for.
Right.
And a lot of people, I've seen this more times than I care to, will attach their resume, and then throughout the application, when it asks for your job history or references or anything that is on that resume, people will just type into the line, see resume, see resume, see resume. And that'll be 6 or 7 times down the application itself.
Mhm.
That's not a recipe for success. Case in point, there was one time someone attached what wasn't their resume. It was a love letter to 5 different women. And it was
Oh,
so
Lord.
bad, mostly because they had no game. Uh, and I was reading this, and and as I was reading, it was like, oh, I know exactly who this is and where they're from. I don't know their name, but this person probably graduated the high school between this year and this year. I bet you they live in this area of town or here. This is an African American male that's doing this, because he's saying things like, "Oh, Miss Lisa, I love how you keep your mane well contained." It's
Oh
like,
my
oh,
God.
the old pimp right there. We're not hiring him, but that's an old pimp.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. He's
and
willing to
so,
adapt to certain situations.
exactly. And I have no clue why he attached all these text messages, because you had emojis and everything,
Hmm.
put it into a Word document. It was to 5 different women, and then put it all in one document. And then that is what he uploaded instead of his resume.
Oh my God.
So, number one, put your resume in its own file, get it a special place,
Right.
uh, because you never know. You don't want to be like, this old pimp who live in, I'm not even gonna say, never mind. But when they're asking you for that information, that's why number one, it'll ask you to attach your resume, but then also give us the details of where you work. Also, those websites they're getting more and more intuitive. So as it's asking what your experience is, how long you worked at an employer, the websites can quantify your experience level. And then as a recruiter is looking at a very blank profile and a list of people who have applied, they can see Reva Petaway has this degree, has 6 years of industry experience even before they click into your resume or click into your profile. So when a application is asking for that information, it's critical, because if you don't complete that, then it's going to say, whereas you may have 10 or 12 years experience, it'll say zero experience. No one's reading your resume. No one's reading your application. We need somebody with experience, and according to what we can see, you don't have it, so you're out.
Right.
So when it comes to those digital applications, it's tedious. It's not fun. No one really likes it, but it's what you need to do. Skipping steps is not a good way to get into any career. You don't want to
Yeah.
have that reputation even if you do get hired.
Right.
So as you're completing applications, as you're looking for jobs, you can do some very detailed searches the same way that you can do Google searches. You look for the keywords for the positions that you're interested in, because we've already passed that step. You know what you want. Do some very detailed searches. You can even do Boolean searches in a lot of these sites. And also make sure that if you're actively looking for a resume, and this is something that a lot of people don't know, if you're actively looking for a job, or looking for a resume, um, post your information on sites like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Career Builder, or what have you, but also refresh it regularly. When people who are in human resources, or people who are reviewing applications, are searching for candidates that may meet their job, because sometimes they'll be searching for positions that they don't have posted.
Hmm.
When they're looking, they typically get resumes that are in order of how recent they are. If you put your resume out there 6 months ago and you haven't touched it for 6 months, when they do a search and they get 200 different professionals that are interested in working, you're going to be number 200,
Right.
maybe 199. But if you have a fresh application, a fresh profile on those sites, when they do that search, you might be number five, you might
Mhm.
be number 10. And I think everybody can relate to the fact that when you do a Google search for something, if it's not on that first page, you're probably not going to see it.
Mhm.
Maybe the second page if you're being thorough, but who does a Google search and they go 10 pages back?
Right.
I don't think you do. If you do, you might be the only person I've met to do that. So the same thing happens with your resume when you put it onto these sites. So in times where I've been out of work and I'm actively looking for a job, what I'll do is, particularly if I don't have anything and I know that I need something right now, I'm going in 2 to 3 times. I'm hitting edit or update on that profile where I have my resume, and even if I don't have any changes to make, I'll hit update and then save.
Mm.
So now the profile says that it has been updated or it has been created as of this date versus 3 months ago.
Right.
That way I can keep myself at the top of that list when people are searching for somebody with my skill set.
Mhm.
That's one reason why I call myself a career survivalist. I've been through it all. I was laid off 4 times in less than 2 years during the recession.
Mhm.
Because when you're in human resources and you're hiring people, if there's no jobs, you don't need somebody to sit there and wait for interviews.
Right.
So that's just one of the little tips that I found myself,
Mhm.
making sure that you're refreshing that profile. But again, as you're looking for those positions, knowing what you want, being able to do those searches, being able to put in those keywords, and then being able to complete that entire application, believe it or not, that gets you much, much further than you would assume.
And then I have a question. So, how do you feel
Mhm.
about cover letters? Because I know that's such a kind of provocative topic. Because usually, sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, cover letters sometimes don't matter," and then sometimes cover letters are the
Mhm.
most important thing, and they give you even more background and more kind of plush experience when you're applying for a job. So,
So, cover letters are good to have if they're asked for.
okay,
Um, the I've seen a few studies in recent years. On average, most studies show that employers spend about 30 seconds per resume on
yeah,
average.
hmm,
And so, with them taking so little time to look at the resume itself, if they're not asking for a cover letter, they're not looking at it. There are some industries and some companies where they do like that cover letter. They do like to be able to look at that and get a snapshot of your experience and why you want the job.
hmm,
But that's typically when they ask for it. If they ask for it, then definitely make sure you have it, because
hmm,
once again, if they want that information, if it's a part of their application, if it's a part of their correspondence to send a resume and cover letter, definitely have it, because it's not a good look to start a career or to start a new job by being the person who cuts corners.
right.
So I'd say it's fairly subjective depending on the company that you're working with. If they want it, definitely have one. But other than that, you don't have to go out of your way for it on a regular basis.
Right. And like, so like, especially sometimes if you're applying for a job on a website, it's like they'll ask for your resume and then they'll ask for your cover letter, and it'll be like under like an optional kind of button. And so I know for me
Mhm,
personally, it's always kind of tricky for me because I'm like, oh, they're asking for the cover letter, but it's optional. So it's like, should I
mhm.
even just put it in there or should I not because it's optional? And so sometimes I just do, and then sometimes I don't. And so that's why I'm like, sometimes I get
And
confused.
and if it's optional, in some cases, that's because that's what their system just has listed as optional.
Right.
Once again, when they really want it, they'll ask you for it. But if they ask you for it and it takes you a day or 2 days to be able to produce it, then that's going to slow down everything. So it's always good to have a cover letter that encapsulates what you're capable of, that is fairly consistent with what you want to do. That
Mhm.
way, if someone does ask for it, even if it takes you 30 minutes, or you have to get back to them in an hour or send it. Maybe somebody calls you when you're in the car and you have to send it while you're at home. Being able to have something on hand that you can adapt to each position and send through is helpful. But in most cases, if it's not asked for, I would say you don't have to send it.
Right. And then I just have one more, I think, quick like question slash topic to talk on.
Okay.
So, would you agree or disagree? Is it better to have 10 jobs to, or have like a less amount of jobs to apply for, but really study and hone in on what you're applying for on those jobs and really, give all your effort to applying those jobs, than having at least 100 jobs that you've applied for, but you spent maybe 5 minutes on applying for each job that you've applied the 100 list?
Applying for jobs is truly a numbers game,
Right.
um, particularly depending on the profession. And I know that a lot of the people that you work with are in STEM, well, all of them, I believe. Those are very highly competitive jobs.
Hmm.
Um, Frequently, what I've started to see is that in America, we're putting a lot of emphasis on education. And in some cases, this is more opinion than fact. In some cases, it feels like you have more students of a profession than you have
Right.
professionals out there. And I've even heard it about law school that there were more, and I've heard it numerous times over the years that there were more students in law schools than there were lawyers on planet Earth.
Hmm.
We have a lot of people who are learning a trade, learning a profession, and not all of those people are going to get the job. Case in point, I started a position at a local hospital, and on my first day, it was completely blew my mind. They sat me down by about 10 o'clock, no orientation or anything. And they gave me a login that said, hey, look at this position, see if you can help us find people. We're behind on this. It was one job, entry level, paid about $9 or $10 an hour. There was 1,425 applicants for that one job.
Hmm.
And I had 60 more jobs to do. So there are times where there are positions where there are so many people that are applying for it. Most positions in my discipline, human resources, we can post those positions, we can put those things out there, and in the course of a week or two, we have at least 200 applications for each and every job opening there is. So if you're only doing 10 positions at a time, it's going to be a long search. I truly believe that it's a numbers game. If there are 100 positions available, particularly in the area where you are, the area where you're interested in living and working, and things that you qualify for, then it costs you nothing but a little bit of time to apply for those.
Hmm.
So I would say that definitely go for everything that's out there,
Hmm.
because while you may be a talented professional, while the company may be a good fit for you, you can do the work. There are a lot of other talented people as well.
Right.
Some people interview better than others. Some people are just terrible at interviews, but they're great employees.
Hmm.
And it's tough in an interview process because you have the difficult challenge of fitting in to the position, to the organization,
Right.
to the company, and also standing out from hundreds of other applicants.
Hmm.
And sometimes the biggest difference is not necessarily how well you did, but when your resume was received.
Right.
Because when I had 1,400 plus applicants to go through, what I did, the way that I had to go through that and to make sure that I wasn't doing anything discriminatory, is I put a filter on and I started looking at the applicants that came through in the last 3 days.
Hmm.
When I didn't see people that might have fit the bill in 3 days, then I expanded it to 7. And then I went to 2 weeks. There were people who had applied for the last 3 months before I had even worked at the organization,
Hmm.
but I didn't have time to go through 3 months worth of applications because, like I said, I have 60 job openings and this is just one position.
Right.
So, me as a human being, I have to find a way to process this and give everybody a fair shake.
Mhm.
And it truly came down to when somebody applied.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different factors that come into it. So I always tell people that, it's a numbers game. Apply to as many positions as you feel like you qualify for.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't get to that particular topic, but that's something that I would add to it as well. As you are job searching, make sure you qualify.
Right, exactly.
um, Companies are under a lot of legal pressure. Being somebody in human resources, I have two jobs. We're kind of on both sides of the fence. We're there to protect the organization, but we're also there for the people.
Right.
So we're both the principal and the counselor in some cases,
Mhm.
and depending on the situation, you're that in the same moment. Um, Very frequently, the job of a human resources individual is to make sure that the company does not get sued.
Yeah.
And employment discrimination is one of the easier ways for that to happen. So, as people are looking at who's applying and who's qualifying, I say fill out the application, because if you don't fill out the application and you do get hired, then the company is in hot water. Because
Mhm.
if you have 200 people who apply, and they hire you without an application, if that gets out, everybody who created an application said, I followed the established process, I followed the law, I went through each and every step possible, and I didn't get it. They can create a claim with the Department of Labor for unfair hiring practices.
Yeah.
So when someone says, "Hey, I know a position, just talk to me and I'll get you in," definitely go with that. If you have somebody who is a good resource, but then also ask them, "Okay, well, how do I create an application? How do I get this in?" You want to make sure that you're going in through the same door. There are a lot of laws dedicated to that. So
Yeah.
as you're doing
Unfortunately,
that,
we're running out of time.
I know I'm rushing. I'm rushing too, believe it or not. And when it comes to the qualifications of it all, make sure that you meet those qualifications, because if you don't meet the qualifications and someone else does, once again, if they hire you, those people can create a lawsuit, class action lawsuit. They can make Department of Labor claims. There's a lot of different things that can go wrong for the company and for you, because after somebody realizes it, then they're going to release you too.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh goodness, this talk was amazing, and I hate that we're running out of time because I'm literally gaining all this information, and this really sucks. But thank you so much for talking with us today, and explaining all of this and helping me and a lot of other people, trying to apply for jobs during this really uncertain time. So I thank you so much, and thank you everybody who has watched this or will watch this on our virtual community site. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And anyone can always contact me. My website is maximizedcareerservices.com. You can find us on Facebook and on Instagram as well. Do have a Twitter, but I need to do better with Twitter. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. But I'm an open book. I am writing a book too, and if there's any information, if there's any questions, I can even do a consultation to look at a resume to see if it needs to be written, because I'm not going to just charge somebody if it doesn't need to be done. So feel free to contact me. You can have your members contact me, because I am here to be a resource to individuals who need support.
All right. There we have it. Thank you so much, and thank
My
you.
pleasure.